So I've been a human being for a while now, in my case, 67 years. And as long as I can remember, I have been, frankly, self-obsessed. That is, I'm busy paying attention to what I am, and how to do better, how to get what I want, what do I want, what should I try to do. Those questions are with me all the time. I'm always thinking about myself and my effort, what effort I should make. I do it with you could say, a sense in the background that if I don't pay attention to myself, I could run aground. I could end up in trouble. I could end up a loser. I could end up stupid. I could make mistakes. So I'm busy steering myself all day long, unconsciously mostly. But I do think about myself and how I come across to others. And once again, what I should try to do and what this person thinks about what I'm doing, what that person thinks about what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And I'm doing this with a backdrop of an accumulated history of ideas about what I am and what I should be doing. That is the meaning of life, as they say, or as I would actually say more accurately, how to feel meaningful. There's a part of me that worries that I will be meaningless in some way. And I got all this background with all these different doctrines about what a being is or what a human is and what they should be doing. All these voices, you could say like backseat drivers. That's my image for it, is that I'm driving a winding road in the dark and the fog, and behind me I've got all these backseat drivers who are saying you should turn this way, you should turn that way, and I'm trying not to crash, okay? So that's the part of me that's self-obsessed, kind of self-monitoring, okay? And I got all these different ideas about what I am, and they contradict each other to a large extent. A religious idea might be different from a spiritual idea, or this religion is different from that religion's idea. And then you got, in the background of all this, you got all the science that's come out mostly during my lifetime about what we are. Nah, that's not true. These ideas were around before, but DNA was discovered shortly before I was born. So there's this idea that I am my DNA. I am copying. I make copies of myself when I have kids. I have 3. And also the idea that natural selection that Darwin explained what I am. So I got these spiritual ideas, I got these ethical ideas, I got these religious ideas, a whole catalog of different ideas about what I am and what I should be trying to do, or at least how to try to figure out what to try to do. And it's kind of anxious driving in that on that winding road with no GPS or you could say a lot of GPS. It's like, imagine if I had all these backseat drivers, they were each representing a different GPS about what's the right move and what's the wrong move. And there's all this bickering among my backseat drivers, the voices in my head that are pointing to opposite things I should do. And I don't know what to do with them. It's like the moment you first discover that your parents don't agree about everything. And you realize, oh wait, then I have to choose. I have to choose who to believe among these backseat drivers in my life. So that's how it feels to be me. And in the meantime, I am a real natural product. That is, I am something that exists in the natural world. I recognize that about myself. At least from my perspective, I'm not something from a supernatural world. I exist right here. I'm as concrete as the table that I'm sitting at. But then again, I'm not like the table. The table's not a self, and it's not trying to do anything. Nor is the water sitting on my desk. It's not trying to do anything. Nor is my computer trying to do anything. I'm trying to do something. These things are not. They just exist. They're durable, and they exist as long as they do, or they move around when they're pushed around, but they're not trying. They're not active like I am. I'm a self. I have a will. I'm trying to figure out where to direct my will. So that's the backstory on who I am, and there's a backstory that's running underneath all of this. That's you could say fueling all these backseat drivers in my life. They all come from different perspectives. Some of them come from a perspective we call revelation. That is, people who think they've seen the truth revealed to them because they got in a state where they just were able to finally see what we really are and what the real meaning of life is. So you got that approach. You also got the scientific approach. But the scientific approach, it also yields not just one backseat driver or a guide in my head, but lots of them, because there's lots of different perspectives about what we really are and what we really should be doing, or whether we even are trying at all. Because after all, there is this argument out there that since we're nothing but chemistry, and since nothing we do violates the laws of chemistry, we must just be chemistry. That is, we're determined. That is, I couldn't help but doing the things I'm doing, including I can't help but wonder what I should try to do, even though it's already decided for me. There's great humor around this stuff. I love this one chapter of a book called, it was written by some biophilosopher types, one of them being a mathematician, Ian Stewart. And the chapter was called, "We considered writing a chapter on free will, but decided against it. Here it is." Or the line from Kurt Vonnegut, "We do doodly do what we must muddly do until we bust bodily bust." Or this limerick, "There was a young man who said, 'Damn, for it certainly seems that I am a creature that moves in immutable grooves. I'm not even a bus, I'm a tram.'" So there's even that idea about what you are, is that you should get over the question of what you should do because it's going to happen anyway. You need to strive for the inevitable. You're determined, that kind of thing. So you got all these ideas floating around in the back of your mind, or at least I do. I'm still talking about me, but I'm trying to generalize. I'm wondering if any of this resonates for you, whether you ever had experiences like this. And in the meantime, in the background, we got this problem. It's about the table and me. The table's inanimate. The table's durable. I'm alive. And I am somehow different from the table. We're both made of chemistry, and neither of us are in violation of the natural laws of physics and chemistry, and yet I'm trying, and the table's not. Now, there are three major moves that people make around this question, which is this one version is actually, believe it or not, no, the table's trying too. It's called panpsychism. I got a buddy who was the former chief astronomer for the Vatican, and he would make this argument. He said there's some aliveness in all matter. There's another version, which I just mentioned, with a few humorous bits of doggerel, which is, I'm not alive and not trying. I'm no different from the table the other way around, and that we're both just chemically determined machines, you could say. And then there's another version, which is, we'll never know. We can't know. And then there's also, you could say, the supernatural version, which I've left out because it's not really science, which is, just imagine that there's some imaginary source up in the sky or in another dimension that breathes energy into us. Breathes not energy, but soul, some kind of vital energy into us. But in the meantime, there's a few people, but not many, who are sitting squarely with this question. No, there's a difference between matter and beings for whom things matter. And the question for the sciences, the burden is on the sciences to explain how that transition happens. We assume that matter came first. The universe has been around 14 billion years roughly, and for the first 10 billion, we don't see anything that is self-like, unless we're the kind of people who say that a table is kind of slightly alive or a planet is trying to create something. But other than that, we'd have to say, no, living is different from non-living, and even if you want to say that God or some force at the beginning of the universe wanted to make us alive, you still have to explain the difference between living things and non-living things, or between a living person and a dead person. So what I'm pointing to is a question that doesn't get answered in science, and a question that would ground the sciences, the life and social sciences, even philosophy and all of that, which is basically what are selves and trying and how did they start? I fell in with someone who happened to be at a high level in academics who was willing to face squarely into that challenge. So you got the physical sciences over on one side, you got the life sciences on the other, and they don't really talk to each other. They kind of equivocate across each other. You know, you can sort of use a little bit of poetry or metaphor to say that an idea had an impact on me like it's a physical force, like a rock having an impact on a car. That kind of metaphoric slop, I would say, where you can kind of anthropomorphize the physical chemistry as if, you know, a hydrophilic end of a lipid molecule loves water. Yeah, no, it probably doesn't love water. It's not exactly love. And you can also go the other way, mechanicomorphic, which is that to say that idea had an impact on me. So we dance across this gap between the two sciences, and I think we dance in part because it's a little treacherous in there. What if we actually did come to some kind of clear, rigorous scientific explanation for what selves and trying really are? What I really am. I mean, I really want to know what I really am, but I also want it to be encouraging. And you look at the world's religions and you get a sense of how much we want it to be encouraging. The belief in an afterlife, belief that we have a soul that migrates to some other form. What if we found out that we have a soul while we're alive and that soul is gone when we're dead? Now, there are some people who can feel proud of themselves for recognizing that. You could say they're goth, and they even show up goth or punk in science. There are people who want to say, hey, none of this means anything. That is, if nothing matters to the universe, then there is no such thing as mattering. That's the folks who would say, well, yeah, the table and me are no different because we're both just chemistry and, nothing matters to anything. So there's a kind of a cynical, nihilistic place you could go to feel better about yourself, where you basically say, yeah, selves and trying are a figment. And you scoff at people who buy that figment. But you still haven't answered the question, figment to whom? There are no figments in chemistry. That is, a chemical cannot be fooled by the figments. Figments are misinterpretations. Interpretation is a living thing. Only living things interpret their environment. When I bang the table, it's not interpreting what I'm doing. It's responding, you could say, in a physical way, according to the laws of physics. But when I hear an idea, it's different. It's actually interpreting. It's not like the idea was bounced off me and had an impact on me in that physical sense. So, one way or another, there's this question. How do selves and mattering emerge from physical chemistry? We know that they did, but we still don't know how. And we could figure it out, and I'm not sure we want to. I've been working for 26 years on a physical chemical model for how we would, how living beings and their purpose, most fundamentally the struggle for existence, could ever have emerged from physics by accident. So purpose emerging by accident from chemistry. And I am fascinated by how much aversion there is to dealing squarely with this question. I'm talking to human selves. One of my favorite responses to this was from an old buddy of mine who asked me what I'd been up to lately, and I told him about this. And he said three things, almost in one breath. He said, sounds like you've got too much time on your hand. That is, you should be doing more important things than that. Then he said, immediately after, like I say, almost in the same breath, he said, there will never be an answer to that question. We can't answer the question. It's a mystery. Give up on trying to figure out how selves could ever emerge from chemistry. And again, in the same breath, he said, and I saw an explanation for it on social media the other day. Something about quantum mechanics and consciousness. I think that kind of avoidance of the question, dismissiveness of the question, actually represents something real about us. I am an anxious being, trying to figure out what to do, struggling for my own existence. That remains my top priority. I don't want to die. And I know I'm going to die. And I don't want to die. And I know I'm going to die. And so I'd rather not get the details about what I am as a living being, because I don't want to hear the bad news about how I'm going to die. When you think about the 2.4 billion Christians in the world, 1.8 billion Muslims, all these religions, the Hindus, all these different religions that cope with the anxiety of dying by saying you never do. Yeah, you shed your body, but you don't actually die because your soul is some supernatural thing. I think that appetite has to be recognized. And I think that there is huge advantage in us finally confronting ourselves with this question as squarely as possible, especially now because science is perfectly capable of explaining how selves and mattering emerged within nothing but physical chemistry, where nothing matters and there are no selves. We could answer that question. I don't think we especially want to. I think we want to avoid that question. Even the scientists. So here I'm talking about something in us that really would like to know what we are, what the meaning of our lives is, but is also trying to figure out how to feel meaningful and doesn't want the bad news if it turns out that we're less meaningful than we'd like to think. So I just want the truth, but it better be flattering. I think it's worth noting. And I think there's huge joy in not knowing, in calling it a mystery or filling it out with whatever wild card theory you want to get, or whatever's popular this month, whatever theory's most popular this month. And I think there's more advantage in actually looking squarely at this question. What are selves and trying? Here I am, a self, constantly trying and trying to figure out what to try to do and trying to keep myself alive. And for all my obsession with myself and my effort, I still might be, if I'm a normal person, not the least bit interested in actually figuring out what selves and trying actually are. So I'm a peculiar case because for 26 years I've been working squarely on that problem with this Berkeley neuroscientist, biological anthropologist Terence Deacon. But I would say that's the case for most of us. We're self-obsessed, we're trying to figure out what to try to do, but we almost never, if ever, stop to think about what selves and trying really are.